All right, we're going to get started in another minute or so. Thank you for being here. All right. My name is Tom Smith. I'm the Dean of Teaching and Learning here at BC High. Thank you so much for joining us today. Just so you know, this is being recorded. We are going to post it on our new students' website. And I'm going to keep letting people in as they come. So here's our agenda for today. So we're going to talk about the course of studies for freshman year. We're going to talk about the electives. So basically languages, math, and fine arts. We'll talk about the placement form, talk about some important dates, and I'll take questions. So I'll take questions at the end, okay? And I'd like you to just put the questions in the chat feature. And we'll just do that at the end of the presentation, okay? I'm not going to be able to look at the chat feature the whole time, so I'm just going to do that at the very end, if that's all right. So again, here's our agenda, and hopefully you'll find it helpful. Again, we're going to record this, and it's going to be posted on the new student website. All right, so the course of study for grade 9. There are 5 classes that all students take as freshmen. Foundations of Faith is a freshman theology class. English 1, every student takes English 1. Global History 1, Biology 1, and Health and Wellness 1. Those classes all students take. There's no leveling for any of those classes. There's a 4-year requirement for theology and English. There's a 3-year requirement for everything else. So for next year, Foundations of Faith, English 1, Global History 1, Biology 1, and Health and Wellness. There's nothing really for your sons to decide. Those are all the classes that all freshmen take. The sort of variance in the leveling and stuff are only in language and math. And of course, the fine arts are elective options as well for next year. This is a brief look at the course of studies for grades 10, 11, and 12. Again, this isn't super relevant for right now, but just to give you a sense that, as your sons get older and matriculate through the school, they get more options in their course selection. So, freshman year, sophomore year, there are not many elective options. But then as they get older, they get more places where they can choose what they want to take. Again, 4-year requirement for theology in English, 3-year requirement for everything else. So that 3-year requirement allows them to double up on subjects later on in their high school career. All right. Here is the typical schedule for our BC High. So you can see here on Monday, Tuesday, and Friday, we have 7 blocks, and the classes meet for 42 minutes. All right. So Monday, Tuesday, Friday, all the classes meet for 42 minutes. On Wednesday and Thursday, classes are 70 or 75 minutes, and the classes meet on one of those 2 days. So all the classes basically meet 4 out of 5 days, Monday, Tuesday, and Friday, and then one of Wednesday or Thursday. And you can see that lunch is built into 5th period. So if you look at lunch, period 5, that's 11:48 to 1:05. So that's long enough for class and lunch. There's also on Wednesdays a late start. So the first period doesn't begin until 9:05. And the faculty have a collaboration period those mornings. So the school, of course, will be open and students can come, go to the cafeteria, go to the library, get homework done, whatever it might be. But the first class that day isn't until 9:05. There's also something called advisory. So every student is put into a house, and then within each house, students are placed into advisories. So advisories are small groups of students, between 10 and 12 students. from freshman year to senior year. And so there's 3 meetings a week with their faculty advisor. So Monday, Tuesday, and Friday, they've got a 10-minute meeting. It's kind of a check-in, some community building. There's some vertical leadership there there's the seniors in there mentoring some freshmen. So that's the advisory Monday, Tuesdays, and Fridays. And then on Thursdays, we have activity block or extra help. So there's a half an hour built in there where sometimes there'll be clubs that meet, and sometimes there's just extra help where students can meet with teachers. All the teachers are free at that point. And then we have a house meeting every Thursday. So like I said, every student's placed into a house. There's about 90 kids in each house. They'll have a full house meeting with their head of house, all the advisors in the house, as well as all the students. So that happens on Thursdays. But this is the typical schedule. You can see that there are 7 blocks, right? A, B, C, D, E, F, G. There are 6 core classes that students take: religion, English, math, science, social studies, and language. Those are the 6 core classes. That 7th block is where students will take fine arts or health. So you can see this particular schedule that I have here, the 7th block happens to be G block, that's empty. So the students either will have a free period or they'll have fine arts, depending on what semester we're in. All right, but that's the schedule, a sample schedule. Let's talk about language. All right, so there's a 3-year requirement for students to have the same language. And 3 years must be in the high school. So, if your son's taking a language now in middle school, those years don't count towards the 3-year requirement. So he has to have 3 years of the same language. The options that we have are Chinese, French, Latin, and Spanish. If your son has experience in a language, say he's been taking Spanish for the last couple of years in middle school, and you want him you want to see if he should be placed in level 2 or level 2 honors, then he needs to take the placement test on June 3rd at 8:30. If he doesn't take a placement test, he's going to automatically be placed in level 1 of whichever language he chooses. So, say he's never had Chinese before and he wants to take Chinese, then he doesn't need to take a placement test because he's never had it before anyway. So he'll just be in Chinese 1. So again, that placement test is June 3rd at 8:30. So again, if you want your son to be in any level other than level 1, he needs to take the placement test. Let's talk about math. So, see, I'm just admitting a couple other people here. All right. So let's talk about math. Here is the general progression for math. So the first column is freshman year, and then sophomore year, junior year, senior year. So you can see all of our students freshman year are placed into algebra or geometry, basically. There might be a couple that are in algebra 2 honors, but most of our freshmen are in algebra 1. No matter where they start in their freshman year math course, they can get to calculus, some version of calculus, whether it's calculus honors or calculus AB, AP. All right, so students are not locked into any particular track, no matter where they start. All right, we also have, it's not on this chart here, we have an algebra 1 advanced. So it's for students who are not quite ready for geometry, but are pretty good in algebra 1. So again, that's not listed on here, but it's part of the algebra 1 grouping. It's algebra 1 advanced. But again, the placement test is what's going to determine what math he starts with. All right, so even if he's in a class right now called algebra 1, he still needs to take a placement test if you want him to be in geometry as a freshman. All right. What we've found in our experience over the years is what some schools will say is algebra 1 is a little bit different than what we say is algebra 1. There might be some topics that we go in much more in depth on. As a former math teacher here, I taught math here for a long time. I taught calculus AP, calculus BC, etc. A strong foundation in algebra is really critical to their success in math at BC High. A lot of times they would understand the calculus concepts without an issue, but in terms of executing on the math, they would struggle with the algebra. So we really recommend that kids take algebra 1 if they're not ready for geometry. The placement test is what's going to determine what level he should be in to start. So that placement test is also June 3rd at 8:30. a lot of kids will end up coming here and taking both tests, the language test in whatever language they want and math. They can just take them back to back. But the placement test is what's going to determine where he is recommended. Again, it's all about putting him in a place that he's going to find the most success. And so that's why we need the placement test. Again, a lot of kids are going to be in a class right now called Algebra 1, but that doesn't necessarily mean he's ready for geometry. So again, there's that placement test. And no matter, like I said, no matter where he lands freshman year, he can still get to calculus. Let's talk about fine arts. All of our core classes, English, math, social studies, science, etc., the full year core classes are worth 1 credit. Our fine arts classes are worth varying amounts of credit. Some of them are quarter credit, some of them are half credit, some of them are 3/4 credit. Students need to accumulate 1 credit in fine arts by the end of their senior year. So they have 4 years to accumulate 1 credit in fine arts. Some kids will take a quarter credit class, 1 quarter credit class each year of high school. That adds up to 1 credit. Some kids will do a half credit freshman year and a half credit another year, and that's 1 credit. Some kids will do a 3/4 credit 1 year and then a quarter credit another year. There's a whole bunch of different ways to accumulate the fine arts credit that's required to graduate. Freshmen are required to take something in fine arts. All right. So they shouldn't, we're not recommending them do too much of fine art in freshman year, but they should take something. Most kids are going to take a quarter credit. But let me show you the options for fine arts. So one option is to participate in one of the bands or the choirs. Right, we've got several of these options. These meet outside of the regular school day. Our regular school day is 8:25 to 2:40. So these meet either before school or after school. All right, and they meet for the whole year. All right, so concert band, chamber orchestra, jazz rock ensemble, jazz big band, and guitar orchestra. Those are all groups that meet after school. All right, like 2 times a week. All right, there are two after school rehearsals throughout the year, and they earn half credit for all those, except concert band is 3/4 credit because I think there are more performances for that group. All right, excuse me. There, these groups do require prior experience, playing an instrument. Right, these aren't for beginners. These are for kids who know how to play their instrument already. They don't have to be perfect, but they need to know how to play. And there is like an audition at the beginning of the school year. But so these groups are, again, 2 days a week after school, half credit for all of them except concert band, which is 3/4 credit. All right. So those are after school. Before school, we have the concert choir and liturgical musicians. All right. So the concert choir meets 2 times a week before school all year. And they start around 7:30. So your son has to be able to get here by that time if he's going to participate in concert choir. Same thing with liturgical musicians. All right, liturgical musicians is twice a week in the morning before school. There are more performances for the concert choir, which is why it's worth 0.75 credits. Liturgical musicians, that's a group that participates or does the music at our masses, our school-wide masses. All right, so so that's what that group is. Again, the concert choir, no prior experience is necessary. We've got a lot of kids in that group. Usually there's around 100 kids in it. So there's an audition, but it's not to determine whether or not your son can participate in the choir. It's to determine his voice. Is he a tenor or is he a bass? Because depending on where his voice is, that determines which day he comes in the morning. So again, prior experience is not necessary for the concert choir and liturgical musicians. Those do meet before school, and you can see the credit that they earn there, 0.75 for concert choir and 0.5 for liturgical musicians. So that's one option for fine arts, are these activities and groups that meet before or after school. Another option would be these foundations classes. So we've got 2 foundations classes, visual foundations, which is for visual art, and then we have theater foundations, which is for the theater. All right, so these classes meet second semester. They meet the same amount of time as any other course, but only in the second semester. So they meet 4 out of 5 days. The students get half a credit for it because it meets half the amount of a full year class. These classes are for students who have a particular passion for visual or theater arts, who have a particular talent for it. The visual foundations class does require approval. So if he's interested in the visual arts like drawing and painting, he should send a sample of his work to Mr. Pat McAllister. His email address is on the screen there, mcallister@bchigh.edu, or he can bring it to the placement test on June 3rd. Again, the visual foundations class is an awesome class. It's for kids who have a passion for the visual arts, and it sets kids up to take some more advanced art classes as he matriculates through the high school. So if he takes visual foundations freshman year, then maybe sophomore year, he takes drawing and design honors. And then junior year, maybe he even takes studio art AP or something like that. So the visual foundations class is pretty sweet. Same thing with theater foundations. If your son is passionate about acting, putting on plays, stuff like that, then theater foundations is a great class for him. That doesn't require any approval or anything like that, but that will set him up to take some advanced acting classes, as well as participate in a lot of our theater productions that we have here. So that's another option. Again, these meet second semester, and they meet in that extra block. So your son wouldn't have a free period second semester because of these foundations classes. And I'll show you what that looks like in the schedule in a minute. The third option are quarter credit electives. All right, so these meet second semester as well, but they only meet twice a week. Instead of 4 times a week, they meet twice a week. So these are all introductory classes. These are for, these have no prior experience necessary, no particular talent necessary. We've got some in the visual arts, like intro to drawing and digital photography, and the theater arts, acting, stagecraft, script writing. So stagecraft is like all the tech side of the theater. Script writing is obviously writing a play, and then acting. We've got some musical performance classes. So we've got guitar ensemble 1, piano ensemble 1. No prior experience is needed, but your son does need access to a guitar or a piano at home if you were to take those classes. Then we have hand chimes and voice studio. So hand chimes is like kids playing. It's almost like a percussion instrument, like a glockenspiel type thing, but it's a little bit different. We started doing this class during the pandemic when kids couldn't sing in the same way because of all the COVID restrictions and stuff like that. The hand chime. So that's a course that's an option. Again, no prior experience is needed. And then voice studio is a singing class. We also have some music classes that are not performance-based. It's just listening to and studying music. So bebop to hip hop and pop, that's a history of American music. Music production and history, that's like making music with a computer. Understanding music is a class where you listen to music and interpret music, the music and the lyrics. And then music for media is music for video games and movies and TV shows and stuff like that. So again, these are all introductory courses. No prior experience is needed. These meet twice a week during the second semester. So let's look at the impact each of these choices would have on your son's schedule. So again, this is semester 1. Like I said earlier, 6 core classes. There are 7 blocks in our schedule, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, right? In this particular sample, this student, his extra block, right? He's got his 6 core classes in A through F. His 7th block, G, is empty. Now, that's not going to be the case for every student. Some students, their free block is C block or whatever. But you can see here, semester 1, he's got a free period, those green boxes on 4 out of 5 days of the week. All right. This is also the block where he will have health. So first semester, once or sometimes twice a week, he'll have health in one of those blocks. All right. But on the other days, he's going to have a free period. If he takes a quarter credit fine art class, one of those intro level classes, this is second semester now. You can see those red boxes here on the screen. So this student is taking intro to drawing. So he takes a quarter credit class, second semester, 2 of those 4 green boxes are now taken up by that fine arts class. So he does not have a free block on Monday or Wednesday, this particular student. He still has a free period on Tuesday and Friday. All right. Again, the exact blocks would change depending on the kid and everything, but that's the general idea. All right. So the quarter credit classes meet twice a week for second semester. The foundations class, if he takes a foundations class for half credit, you can see here, second semester, this kid is taking visual foundations. So he no longer has a free block during the second semester because he's earning credit. He's earning more credit, half credit now, for that foundations class. And he's doing a class that he's passionate about. it will set him up for further advanced art classes going forward. All right, so you can kind of see the impact that the fine arts choice has on your son's schedule. If you were to take or participate in a band or a choir, right, he's maintained those free periods during the day, but that means twice a week he's got to come in early for concert choir or liturgical musicians, or twice a week he has to stay after school for band, concert band, jazz band, or whatever band he's participating in. All right. So again, he still has those 4 free periods, but he's got some after school or before school commitments. All right. So those are the 3 basic buckets that your son needs to choose from: either a quarter credit class, a half credit foundations class, or one of the bands or choirs. All right. You shouldn't be trying to do, multiple things in those 3 buckets, right? So for example, like he couldn't do visual foundations and intro to drawing, right? Because those are going to meet in the same block. It's impossible. There's no way he could do both of those. Theoretically, he could do a band that meets after school and an intro to drawing class, for example. He could do that, but that's a lot, right? That's a busy schedule second semester where he still has those 2 free periods, but now he's got after school commitments as well. All right. So again, we don't recommend kids try to do too much fine art freshman year, but they have to do something. All right. Again, a lot of kids will do a quarter credit class for 4 years, and they might do a drawing class freshman year, and then a digital photography class sophomore year, and then they'll do an acting one junior year, and you can mix and match, or you could stay on a path, right? You could do intro to drawing freshman year. Sophomore year, he does sculpture. Junior year, he does architectural drawing, etc. So like you can stay in one sort of path of visual art, or you can mix it up. All right. But those are the options for fine arts. So again, I've given you the titles of all these courses, but in the course catalog is where you'll find actual descriptions, in more detail of what these fine arts classes are all about. All right. So again, I can give you the basic gist with a title, but you should really check out the course catalog that has more detailed explanations of each of these classes. The course catalog is found on the new students website, which is on another slide later in this presentation, but that's where you can find the course catalog. It's on the new students website. We have also a placement form that needs to be due, but it's due by this Friday. All right. So again, this should be submitted online. There's the web address for the form, and I'll walk you through the form now. All right. The form is pretty easy. First name, last name, t-shirt size. He's going to be placed into a house. And so he's going to get a house t-shirt at orientation in August. So we need his t-shirt size. His hometown and current school. All right. Pretty straightforward. And then the fine arts choice, right? So if he's going to do one of the bands, he needs to check off which one he wants to do. All right. If he's going to do a foundations class, he just check off which one he wants to do. He can't do both visual foundations and theater foundations, right? He's got to pick one. All right. Or he's going to do a quarter credit class. And so he needs to rank his choices 1, 2, 3, and 4. So, for on this sample here, the default is acting 1 because that's the first one alphabetically. But he wouldn't choose that one for all 4, right? I want his rankings for those quarter credit classes because we try to give everybody their top choice for a quarter credit fine art. Sometimes it doesn't work out because of scheduling reasons, or if there aren't enough kids that sign up for that particular class. So I need to have a backup. So what he needs to do is choose his top 4 choices: first choice, second choice, third choice, and fourth choice. Again, he shouldn't be choosing stuff in all of these buckets, right? He shouldn't be choosing the band and theater foundations, for example, and a quarter credit class, right? He can't do all those things. So he should be really operating in one of those 3 buckets. All right. Then the language choice, it's very similar. We need his top 4 choices for a language. Again, most kids are going to get their top choice, but occasionally there's a scheduling issue where it doesn't work out, where he doesn't get his first choice. So we need his top 4 choices for a language, right? And here he just checks off which one is his first choice, which one is his second choice, etc. Then he has to tell us if he's coming for a placement test, and just check off which language test is he taking and whether or not he's taking the math placement test. All right, just a simple checkbox, and then hit submit, and that's it. All right. Again, it's due by this Friday. It's submitted online. This is the website at the top of this page here. It's the new student website. So if you go to this website and click grade 9, you'll see the course catalog. You'll see the essentials guide, which has all this information in it, like the preliminary calendar, the checklist, technology information, health forms, information about the placement test, like what's on the math placement test. That information is in there. A little bit of information about the language placement test. Again, the course catalog is there, information about orientation, and of course, the link to the placement form is on that new student's website. All right. So again, the placement form, here's the link right here as well. bchigh.edu/high school language selection. So, that's the link, direct link for the placement form. But if you just go to the new student's website here, all right, bchigh.edu/enrollment/new students, click grade 9. That'll take you to the relevant information. There will be a webinar next Friday, May 5th at noon about technology at BC High. All right. So we are a bring your own device school, but students are required to have a device, right? They need something. They need either a laptop or a tablet, right? An iPad or Chromebook or whatever it might be, but they need something. All right. Most of our kids have iPads or laptops. And I would say most of our kids have Apple products. It's not required that they're Apple products. Years ago, we were exclusively an iPad school, so most of our troubleshooting ability is with Mac products. Not that we can't help a student who has a PC, but we're probably more equipped to help a student with a Mac product, whether that's a MacBook or an iPad. But you can see here the basic recommendations. Got to be able to run Chrome browser, which they almost all can do that. 128 gigs of storage. If it's an iPad, it should be the latest base level iPad. It does not need to be the iPad Pro. But it should be the Wi-Fi version, not the one with cellular network connection. We want the students on our Wi-Fi network here when they're here at school. Again, it shouldn't be more than 2 years old if they're using a hand-me-down iPad. Again, there's a webinar next Friday at noon, talking all about technology. So that would be great for you to attend. It'll be recorded and posted online as well. We're also going to have some setup sessions over the summer where you would come to school with the device your son is using or will be using during the year, and we'll get the whole thing set up for him. The Wi-Fi connection, get his email set up, purchase his books, all that stuff. Make sure he's good to go. So that's over the summer. There'll be setup sessions for that. A couple other things I want to put in front of you. We've got a lot of summer academic offerings as well as sports camps and specialty camps and clinics. So there's some warm-up stuff like study skills, writing, math, intro to algebra, intro to geometry. Again, those are not for credit. They're not going to go on as transcript or anything, but they're just to help them get ready for school. We've got some specialty clinics like robotics and coding and stuff like that, and a bunch of sports camps. So definitely worth checking out. I used to coach the basketball camp. It's a great way for kids to meet other kids coming into their class. There's the link for it, bchigh.edu/education/summer programs. Definitely worth a look. Again, just a reminder for the upcoming dates. April 28th is when the placement form is due. Early May, you'll get access to our website, My BC High. You had access already to Ravenna, which is like our enrollment system, but you're not going to need that anymore. You're going to have different username and password for My BC High is what it's called. My BC High. It's our student information system. So you'll get that information in early May. May 5th is that technology webinar. June 3rd is the placement test. And then there's freshman orientation June 12th or 13th. It's not both. I think that's going to be by house. So we'll probably have to tell you which night you are expected, either the 12th or the 13th. You purchase a T-Pass between July 5th and August 18th if you need a T-Pass. And then the device setup sessions, that's when you bring in your son's, or you and your son come in, ideally, with his laptop or iPad or whatever device he's using to get it set up and ready for the school year. All right, so let me take some questions. I know we just went through a lot. And just type in any questions you might have. Feel free to type them into the chat. and I will answer them as best as I can. So I'll just wait a sec here for anybody to type in anything. One question that comes up a lot about the concert band and those after school groups is the conflict that might happen with the band and sports. And so that is a conflict at times, depending on the group. So for a group like concert band, is usually a bigger group. So students, in order to get credit for participating in concert band, they need to participate in 2 out of the 3 seasons. So there are 3 seasons to the sports schedule: the fall, winter, and the spring. So if your son plays a sport in the winter, for example, if he does band in the fall and the spring, he can still earn credit for concert band. All right. Some of the other groups, it's a little bit harder. Like the chamber orchestra is a much smaller group. So that group is, there's only a handful of guys in that group. So if you're missing an instrument for an extended period of time, it kind of kills the group and the ability to play certain songs and stuff like that. So there's not as much flexibility with the chamber orchestra. But some of the other groups are big enough where they can lose somebody for a season, and then they can still get credit for it. All right, I see a question here. When will we hear on our son's language selection? Yeah, so great question. So the placement form, he will select his first choice for language, and then he'll take a placement test if he wants anything other than level 1, and then before the summer, probably at orientation on June 12th or 13th, he will get a scheduling letter. All right. And on that letter, it will indicate which courses he's enrolled for next year. And that will say, which language he's in. It'll also be mailed home or emailed home. All right. In case he loses it at orientation. So there'll be a scheduling letter before the summer, right? So sometime in early June or at the orientation on June 12th. He'll get a scheduling letter that indicates both his math placement and his language placement. All right. So that's when we'll hear about that. All right. Again, the placement test isn't until June 3rd. We try to turn those around pretty quickly, get them scheduled. And then again, they won't get their schedule that early. They'll get the classes they're enrolled in, but it's not, like what block it meets and what teacher they have and stuff like that. That won't come until later in the summer. But they'll get at least a letter saying, all right, here are the classes you're taking. All right, here's a couple more questions I see coming in here. Do we recommend the boys attend a summer sports camp if they plan to try out for a sport for the fall, winter? Or will the team have workouts the boys can attend? All right, so great question. The summer sports camps are not tied to our varsity JV freshman teams. All right, so some of the coaches that work the camp are probably coaches in our programs, right? Like, for example, I coach the summer basketball camp. I'm the assistant varsity basketball coach. So, but no one's making any decisions on, tryouts or anything based on the summer sports camp. All right. There's going to be tons of kids in the summer sports camp who have very little experience. It's very much like, it's kind of like a come on, come all, right? So there's some really talented kids that come to our sports camps, no doubt about it. But there's definitely other kids who are beginners or whatever it might be. So I wouldn't think of the sports camps like that. Will the teams have workouts the boys can attend? Sometimes. It depends on which sports. But generally speaking, the freshmen are not involved in those things. Like usually the summer workouts and stuff like that are for like the returning varsity players. That's typically who participates in those like summer workouts and stuff. Question, is Algebra 2 only open to incoming freshmen who attend Arupe, i.e., BC High 8th graders? It's not necessarily like that, like only open to them. We do have some 8th graders who are currently taking geometry honors, right? So the next course for them would be Algebra 2. So the freshmen that are in Algebra 2 typically are from Arupe, but we've had a couple freshmen from elsewhere that place into Algebra 2, but it doesn't happen very often. I will say that. If we're ever going to do that, usually that requires like a separate placement test and stuff like that, which again does not happen very often. We usually have everybody take the same placement test and then see what happens from there. Again, there's going to be stuff on the placement test that the kids don't know. It's sort of designed to be that way. So it's designed to place kids in the best possible spot for them. It's best for them to take the test and then see what happens afterwards. Let's see here. Our son selected the Latin, but he has been taking Spanish. If he does not get Latin, can he still take the? Yeah, Absolutely. He can still take the placement test. Honestly, almost every kid is going to get their top choice for language, right? It's pretty rare where we don't, have either enough kids taking the language. I mean, our Chinese program is a lot smaller. So there has been years in the past where like not enough kids selected Chinese one. But that hasn't happened in a while, right? So like almost every kid's going to get their top choice. But if you want, just in case, even though he wants to do Latin, he can still come and take the Spanish placement test. That's fine. Um, let's see. Let me see if there's any other questions coming through here. I don't see anything at the moment. I'm going to type in my email address because you might think of something later on. And that's my email right there, tsmith@bchigh.edu. You can send me an email if you think of something later on. You're like, hey, I wish I asked this during the webinar, but I didn't think of it then. You can always send me an email and I can get back to you, or I can point you to the right person who has the answer if I don't have it. But again, we're excited that you chose BC High. It's a special place. Um, it's this time of year is always exciting, right? Because we're graduating the senior class, we're winding down with them, but then we're also getting ready to invite a whole bunch of new kids to the school, which is awesome. So I'll stick around for another few seconds here, but if I don't see anybody typing, thank you so much for participating and for being here. We're going to post this recording on the new students website. So definitely check that out. Again, if you want to watch it again or share it with your son or your spouse or whatever. Again, that placement form is due this Friday. And then we'll go from there. All right. Thank you so much for everything. And I hope you have a great rest of your day.